There I am. Wild hair and all. It says it's recording. So I have to be careful what I say. It's recording.
Don't play it right now. Don't turn it on yet.
All right, there we go. Hello to everybody. I'm Stephen Jaffe, your humble president here. And this is the first general membership meeting that I will be trying to run. So forgive any errors or mistakes that I make. I just want to make a few comments before we launch into our brief business. I think it's easy for Democrats to take a deep breath and take their foot off the pedal here because we did so well in the past elections and elected President Biden and Vice President Harris. But I want to stress, as exciting and important as that victory is, there is a tremendous amount of work that remains to be done by the Democratic Party, and the issues keep popping up. The issues are not going away. And I just want to highlight what I consider to be some of the obvious issues that we as a Democratic club should be looking at. And I'm sure you all have your own opinion about what some of the other issues probably are. The most glaring example of why we have to stay focused is this horror show that just occurred in the state of Georgia with a passage of a state law, which I will tell you, in my opinion, is dead on arrival at the first courthouse it sees. It's clearly unconstitutional for a variety of reasons, violates a lot of federal voting laws. But beyond that, it is just stupid and mean-spirited. The notion of not giving water or food to somebody who is waiting in line is just incomprehensible to me. If you did that to a dog, you could be prosecuted for animal abuse. But apparently the Georgia Republicans in the state legislature think it's okay to do that to people. We've got this escalating violence against Asian Americans, which needs to be addressed. We have President Biden's relaxation of the draconian rules that were in place at the border have now caused another kind of issue, which is what to do with the number of people trying to get in. So there is that issue. Something very important to me, and I know some of you that I'm looking at here, which is Medicare for all, still needs to be addressed. I think that's something that Democrats still need to try to talk about. The inequitable and ineffective distribution of vaccine, not only in Riverside County perhaps, and in California, but around the country, particularly as it impacts minorities, needs to be addressed. There are local issues that are peculiar to us as local Democrats. The ones that I'm familiar with mostly are trying to get severely entrenched Republican-dominated city councils to adopt district elections and to adopt term limits, because they use the lack of both of those as devices to simply stay in power decade after decade after decade. So that's kind of a long-winded way for me to say, I don't intend to take my foot off the pedal, and I encourage all of you to try to do exactly the same. So that's my opening pitch here. I want to say a special hello to a couple people. First, I want to introduce Ellie Kay. Ellie Kay's been running the Democrats, the desert headquarters of Riverside County Democratic Party, but Ellie is our new regional director. So let's all congratulate Ellie, because she's going to do a fabulous job. I think she she's probably been doing much of what her job is going to entail already, but it's going to be expanded. And I just want to give Ellie, you can unmute yourself if you would.
I'll be happy to.
And give Ellie a minute or two. She may have a couple of announcements that she can say a lot better than me for the group, since we're all assembled here.
Well, thank you, Stephen. And yes, I am your new Region 19 director. And I take no credit on this, and I'm a big fan of Michael Milan, but Michael had some priorities and I don't. So by the priorities, I mean, he was working for a living, and I'm a retiree, so I'm going to be able to devote a lot of time, not only to continuing the political direction that I do with the Democratic headquarters of the desert, but as your Region 19 director. On that, I will tell you very quickly that it is 4 assembly districts that I will be working with: the 42nd, the 56th, the 67th, and the 71st. So the district goes from a little bit of San Bernardino, a little bit of San Diego, all of Coachella, all the way through the pass area. We're talking Morongo, all the way down to, as I say, Imperial and over to San Diego. So it's a big district. And frankly, I've become very fond of Zoom, very fond of it, because I've been able to touch base with just about all of the clubs now, and I've been able to touch base with the central committees for San Bernardino, San Diego, and Imperial. Now, along that line, just 2 quick things to let you know. I will be available. I will be putting most of you have my cell phone, most of you have my email, but you're going to have it because I want you to stay in contact with me. Let's talk. If we have issues, my job is to volunteer, of course, but my job is to be your liaison between our wonderful areas and the California Democratic Party. So I'm going to be available. I'm going to make sure you have my phone number, make sure you have my email, and if you need anything or you just want to vent, I'm available. Now, very, very quickly, because I don't want to take too much time from Anita, who is always really, really good. There is a project that is going on. There's a fundraiser going on that I want you all to think about if you haven't signed up for it yet. It is the first time, to my knowledge, and I've been around quite a while, as many of you know, but it's the first time the 2 major groups have come together: the Orange County Democratic Club Central Committee and the Riverside County Central Committee. And they are doing a project, a Zoom project, that will take place April 1st, 6:30 to 7:45 in the evening, 6:30 to 7:45. It's called United Blue for 22. I love that title. And I'll tell you, they've got a lineup of speakers that'll blow you away. Katie Porter, Raul Ruiz, the chairman of the DNC, Jamie Harrison, Mark Takano, so many more. It's going to be terrific. Yes, there's a cost, but it's going to help both of our parties, both this Orange County and Riverside County. We're going to come together for the first time and have a great event. So take a look at it, please. You can go to, I will post it on the chat of where you can sign up and get a ticket. Please think about doing it. It supports us so we can support our candidates. Stephen, I thank you for the time you've given me. If you have any questions, folks, again, I'm going to give you my email, my phone number, and how to connect on this. Thank you.
Well, Ellie, I'll tell you, I've already bought a ticket personally, and I think the DOD will probably follow through with some kind of addition to that. And I will say this about Ellie: she is, she's too modest that she says she can't take credit, but if there had been 10 people running against her, I would have voted for her anyway. She is the perfect person for the job. And the other comment I'll make about Ellie is that I've rarely seen anybody make themselves as accessible as she has made herself. So take advantage of this terrific lady if you can.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I'll post my information right now.
All right. The other person I want to introduce is a guest here today, Melody Lamaga. I hope I said, did I say your last name right, Melody?
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Okay. Melanie is going to just do a very brief, I have to emphasize, not too long, description of who she is. Melody is in the Palms to Pine chapter, Palms meaning the desert, Pine meaning obviously the mountains and beyond, of the Citizens Climate Lobby. And that is obviously a organization addressing the existential issue of climate change. And I invited her here because that's an issue that I think our club should be aware of and sensitive to. And Melanie, if you want to talk for a minute or two about your organization and how to reach you and what people can do, I'm going to open it up here.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and you graciously said that Democrats of the Desert should now extend to Idlewild. So I'm spreading the word around and letting people know that. And I intend to join your organization as well. So thank you so much for the welcome. And, you know, as he said, Palms to Pines chapter, we started as the Idlewild chapter. We expanded now, we're on Zoom to cover the whole 36th congressional district. And of course, we support state and local climate initiatives, but our primary goal is to encourage Congressman Ruiz to take a leadership role in passing federal climate legislation to mandate that the US will achieve net zero carbon emissions by 2050. And I'm here to encourage all of you as individuals to join our chapter, and I'll put the link in the chat. And I'm also asking DOD to collaborate with us as an organization. CCL has 600 chapters of volunteers nationwide, been working for over a decade to get federal climate legislation introduced. This became a reality when the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act was introduced in 2017. The bill proposes a steadily rising fee on carbon where it enters the economy and returns that fee directly to citizens and residents in the form of a monthly check. The policy's been studied extensively. Economists and scientists agree that it would be successful. We feel that the dividend is an important part of this because it is an environmental justice issue to give the money back to people so that they are protected as the cost of carbon fuel rises and we transition to a clean energy. If that money stays in the government, you know, you could have yellow vest protests like you had in France, and it would not be justice especially for low and middle income folks. In conclusion,
could you put, Melanie, could you put your contact information into the
Doing
chat?
it now.
yes.
I'm doing it now.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, and I'm going to put, there's a website dedicated to this bill. It's like 5 pages. It's succinct, but it gives you all the main information about what the bill is, what it would do, who sponsors it. There's links that an organization can sponsor it, and also links so that an individual can write to the representatives to ask them to sponsor it.
Okay.
So I'll put all that in the chat, and also the link to how you can join us.
Terrific. Well, I think there'll come a time when you'll return to one of our meetings here and make a longer presentation and talk a little more about your organization. But thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. The last piece of business before we hear from Anita, I just want to introduce, I'm not quite sure how many of them are here, but I want to introduce the executive committee of our organization. Everyone knows who I am. The vice president is Marcy Maxwell, and she is here, I see. Our executive secretary is Jackie Lopez. I'm not sure if I saw Jackie here. Our communications officer or chair is Megan Beeman Jacinto. She's an elected official on the Coachella City Council. Our fundraising chair is Frank Figueroa. Our program chair is Erin Turan. She is here. Hello, Erin. Our candidate development chair is Michael Finland, who is here but driving and can't speak, he says. Our citizens lobby chair is Steve Brooks. I know Steve's here because I saw him. Our communications outreach chair is Patrick Weiss. I'm not sure if Patrick is here. Our hospitality events chair is a lady named Susan Jeffy, and I know she's here. Our membership chair is Kathy Snyder, and I did see Kathy. Hello, Kathy. And our president emeritus, she's last on the list, but certainly as important as anyone, who is, as far as I'm concerned, still the heart and soul of the DOD, is Dory Smith, and she will be joining us a little later. But I've said Dory's an impossible act for me to follow. I can't be more in debt to her and everything she did for the club. So that's our executive committee. It's really a terrific group of high-powered, very smart, dedicated people. So with that business aside, I want to introduce Anita Rufus. I did send out earlier a little bit of her background. Anita is a lady who wears a lot of hats. She's a radio host, a journalist, many hats, and I suspect I don't want to embarrass her, but if you're interested in her biography, it's in the notice of the meeting. We are very lucky to have her here. She's very interesting and informative and timely on the subjects that she's going to talk about today. So Anita, you can unmute yourself and start talking. And after that, we'll do a little question and answer period with Anita. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And it's a pleasure to be here with all of you. I thank Stephen and Aaron in particular for having figured out how to get this all set up. Those of you who know me know that in only 20 or 30 minutes, it's hard for me to even say my name. So I'll do the best I can. When we were setting up what this talk would be about, the truth is we ended up with 3 different subjects. And I kept scrambling and doing background information because each one that came up, I wanted to be able to do it justice. So there are 3 things I want to talk about today, and I'll get through them as quickly as I can for you. The first one is about gun control. Given what has happened in the last 2 weeks, it is intolerable that we are where we are as a country with regard to guns. And I'll get into some of the statistics, which when I began to dig them out, I was more shocked than I had been. The second thing I will talk about is the reauthorization of the Violence Against Women Act. And finally, I want to kind of close off Women's History Month with a little bit of good news. So let me start with guns. I was appalled after the shooting. It was bad enough what happened in Atlanta, but then what happened in Boulder. And when I heard somebody say, well, now that we're all getting vaccinated and we've had this horrendous year of the pandemic, finally, sadly, we're getting back to normal, whatever the hell that means. And unfortunately, it also includes mass shootings. In 2020, last year, most of which you will recall, we were stuck in our homes almost without exception across the country. There were 21 million different background checks for the purchase of firearms done in 2020. 21 million. 8 million brand new gun owners were licensed in 2020. And right now in the United States, there are over 400 million guns in American hands. So for what it's worth, I don't have a gun. I don't know how many of you may have a gun. But when you think about that there are more guns in circulation in this country than there are people, including children, it's a staggering number. And particularly with regard to the shooting in Colorado, what struck me was, if you go all the way back to Columbine, that was in Colorado, and that was in 1999. Since then, Just since 2013, in the last 8 years, there have been 24 mass shootings in Colorado. That means more than 4 people at a time being killed. And they are only number 5 in the United States. So think about the reality of that. We keep hearing about Colorado, and we're not taking into account that there are 4 other states that have had more mass shootings than that state. And it is horrifying. Now, the law that's been put forward by the House, and of course it hasn't made it through the Senate, but it includes things like an expanded background check. Background checks should obviously cover anyone who's buying a gun on the internet. They should not be able to buy guns on the internet unless they can show that they have passed a legitimate background check. And one of the things this law would include is at least a 10-day waiting period, a cooling off period, if you will. Let's not forget that in Georgia, the guy who shot up those spas in Atlanta bought that gun and walked out of the store with it on the same day. It takes about 90 seconds to do a computer background check for whatever that might be worth, whether it has full information or not, and somebody walks out the same day with that gun. That is, for me, intolerable. And at the very least, if you have a waiting period, even a 3-day waiting period, it means it's a cooling off period for somebody who unfortunately wants to take their own life. And in fact, I believe that suicide is the top killing statistic with handguns, people who take their own life. A cooling off period could make all the difference. Also, one of the big arguments that are put forth against any kind of expanded gun laws, aside from the insane shibboleth that, oh, they're coming to take your guns away, as if we could find 400 million guns. One of the things they say is, well, if I just want to give my gun to my uncle, I don't want to have to go through all of that. I know my uncle. These things called private transfers. And let me just remind you, you know, you may not be hunting anymore. You hurt your leg. You don't want to hunt anymore. You're not going to keep your gun. Your cousin says, you know, I think I might take up hunting. So you give your gun to your cousin. You may not know that your cousin has a restraining order for having beat the crap out of his wife and that he has threatened to kill her. That's why background checks, even for private transfers, are really important. Now, of course, the gun lobby says, oh, well, you just want to get all our names in so that the government knows everybody who has guns. Well, even with assault rifles, if these nuts think that they are going to be able to take arms against the government with bombers and tanks, it's just ludicrous. And it's a great argument, except that it doesn't hold up with the majority of the American people. Assault weapons should be banned, no question about that. It expired 17 years ago, and we certainly have no reason for weapons of war to be used for something like hunting, or that they are necessary for one to defend oneself. And when people make the argument, well, you know, somebody said this to me this week, well, you know, more people are killed with knives than with guns in this country. Even if that were true, they're killed one at a time, not dozens at a time. So it's a stupid, pointless argument, and it's easy to refute. Assault weapons are the favored weapon of extremists and domestic terrorists, which is another good reason to not sell them anymore and to get them out of the hands of everyone possible. Also, guns should be denied to people who have been convicted of domestic violence or who have restraining orders against them for stalking or for domestic violence. And families should be able to report when they have someone in their family who is seriously depressed, threatening suicide, and you know that person has guns. There's nothing wrong with being able to call the police or call some number and be able to say to somebody, my brother has been suicidal, I'm very concerned about him, and he has guns. Could you at least check it out? You can save somebody's life that way. We do need to pass these laws. It is incredibly important. And even though, similar to the relief bill that just passed, even though the majority, including Republicans, support these common sense approaches to limiting access to firearms, the Republicans in Congress are not going to vote for it. And so the argument about filibuster comes up yet again. I don't have a recommendation when it comes to guns, but I do think that some responsible, limited, smart controls could be put in place, like at least a 3-day waiting period, like at least internet and gun show sales must go through a background check and a 3-day waiting period. I think we could get some of that through. I don't think we'll get everything we want, but then we never do. I want to talk about the reauthorization of the Violence Against Women Act. I heard a statistic yesterday that absolutely, I never thought about it this way before. But the statistic was that internationally, 6 women an hour are killed across the planet in violent encounters of one kind or another. And I remember once having read a statistic that, you know, there are always people who die on the job, men who fall off of scaffolding, or somebody who, you know, is a policewoman chasing someone in the car and gets killed. But the majority of women who get killed on the job, it's because that's where their domestic violence partner or someone in their life who wants to do them harm, they always know where to find them: at work. And this is something where companies did get a little bit better about putting lighting in the underground parking area, making sure that there's at least someone who can walk a person down in the middle of the night if they have to go down by themselves because they worked late. These are the kinds of things that need to be taken into account. And with all due respect to the men on this issue, women really do understand it better, only because they're the ones who have to check in with each other after somebody goes home alone, after having dinner together. Text me when you get home. That feeling of needing to check up. I heard a suggestion recently that if men really want to make a difference on this subject and truly recognize how vulnerable women feel, when you're walking down the street at night behind a woman walking alone, cross the damn street so that she does not feel threatened. Men don't walk around all the time with that feeling of being at risk. When I get in my car, even in the market parking lot, the first thing I do before I even put the key in, I lock the door. I didn't used to feel like I had to do that. I sure do now. The reauthorization of the Violence Against Women Act, it passed the House, and 172 Republicans voted against reauthorizing. Now, one of the reasons we believe that that's true is because of what is known as the boyfriend loophole in the law that they're trying to close right now with this new writing of the Violence Against Women Act. The boyfriend loophole, there was a wonderful article in the LA Times written by Robin Abkarian, and I pulled it out because I didn't want to botch up how beautifully she said it. She said, the reason that Republicans are voting against the Violence Against Women Act being reauthorized has something to do with limits on gun ownership. She said the new version of VAWA contains language that would close a quirk known as the boyfriend loophole. Currently, federal law prohibits those convicted of domestic violence from possessing or buying firearms, but it does not apply to perpetrators who have abused current or former dating partners with whom they do not share a child or with whom they have never lived, and thus the name the boyfriend loophole, because they are not prohibited from getting firearms, even if they have been convicted of partner violence. And she says, and yet about half of all intimate partner homicides are committed by current or former dating partners. So this is something that is not usually thought of. We think of domestic violence, that thing that goes on behind people's closed doors. And for what it's worth, for this past year that we have been telling each other we need to stay safe at home, women who are living with this kind of violence and the men who also sometimes are subject to this violence, they have not been living safe at home. This has been a very, very dangerous time for those living in those kinds of circumstances. The Violence Against Women Act brought us something that we don't often think about anymore, but when I was growing up, this was a big deal, and it's something called a rape shield law. It means if a woman gets raped, her past sexual history is not open to the court because it has nothing to do with that incident. I once had a big argument with Sonny Bono when he was mayor of Palm Springs. And he said, well, the reason that he had decided that the city was going to ban women sitting in bikini bathing suits on the back of a motorcycle going down Palm Canyon was that he was trying to protect them from being raped. And I came right out in the local media and I said, I don't care if a woman is lying spread-eagled naked in the middle of Palm Canyon. She is not asking to be raped. This is, and we've been talking more about this lately, this is not a problem that is women's problem. It's men who primarily are responsible for this, and it is men who need to find a way through their sons and their friends and the men in the clubs they go to, and even within an environment like the Democrats of the Desert, where you are men who care about the women in your lives and want to be doing the right thing on these issues. You need to influence each other. Women can do just so much, and women should not have to be the ones restricted in being able to live their lives. Needless to say, of course, that minority women are even more subject to this. And we saw this as a result of the shootings in Atlanta. The fact is, women are sexualized, and women of color, and particularly Asian women, are not only sexualized, but they're fetishized. They're seen as exotic. They're seen as docile. They're seen as hypersexual, women of color in particular. And it is a way of dehumanizing someone to be able to take advantage of them. I read an article recently that led to a question that really got me thinking. And it was, if consensual sex happens as a result of fraud, could it be considered rape? And I want to just leave you with this to think about, because these are the kinds of issues that have to be thought through when somebody is writing legislation. Every little nuance that could possibly be interpreted one way or another has to be taken into account. So a guy and a gal meet in a bar, they kind of like each other, sparks are flying, great environment for whatever's going to happen. They've both had a couple of drinks. And she says to him, "Are you married?" And he says, "Why do you ask?" And she says, "Well, I really like you, but I have a rule. I absolutely will not go to bed with a married man." And he says, "Well, don't worry, I'm not married." Okay, they have consensual sex, and it turned out he lied. Should that be considered rape? And I will leave you with that to blow your minds, because I haven't figured out the answer to it yet. But no less than feminist lawyer Susan Estrich argued that the law of rape should prohibit fraud, just as the law of theft prohibits fraud to get money from someone. I said I was going to try and get to the third subject. Oh, by the way, I forgot to show you my shirt.
What does it say?
Stop violence against women. I have an old t-shirt with political sayings on it from just about every era we've ever had. I do want to give just a piece of advice, having been in a domestic violence situation myself once, which proves to me that it can happen to anybody. If you are in a situation like that, tell somebody. Tell a best friend, call a national hotline, call the local shelter number. There's help out there. And I know that a lot of times women who are going through this feel isolated. If you know someone who you suspect is going through this. When I was growing up, there was a neighbor who lived on the corner, and it was just a man and his wife. They didn't have any children. And we thought he was so attentive. He never let her go to the store by herself. He never let her go anywhere that he didn't drive her and make sure she was going to be all right. Well, it turned out, we found out later, that he literally had been beating the crap out of her behind closed doors. So if there's ever somebody that you suspect might be going through a situation like that, at least just reach out to say, "Listen, I don't want to butt into your life, but if you ever need somebody to talk to, or if you ever feel like you're in trouble, please know I would be very happy to have you call me, and I will show up wherever you might need me to show up." It's the kind of thing we say to our best friends. We should say it to anyone we think might be in this kind of trouble.
It's a good resource.
And obviously, we need to reauthorize the Violence Against Women Act. Okay, I want to share with you some good news, and then I will shut up. Militants say that in Pakistan, 4 female instructors riding in a bus to a place where they taught people skills that could get them jobs, they were shot and killed. A Sharia court in the Gaza Strip ruled that women cannot travel without the permission of a man in their life. And if they don't have a man in their life, then they're just out of luck. In Sudan, rape is being used as a weapon of war in Ethiopia. And this is outrageous and horrendous. A French court, a judge said that assault of a 13-year-old is not really rape if it was consensual. A 13-year-old. Venezuelan women have lost access to contraception. The cost of contraception is so high and abortion is outlawed. Venezuelan women are going to start self-medicating and they will die. And the coronavirus worldwide has kept so many kids out of school that child marriage, young women being literally sold into marriage to older men around the world, is rampant right now because families are desperate and people will pay to get your lovely virginal young daughter.
Oh my God.
There's good news too. Look for it. Women are making a difference. My favorite phrase of this whole last year is a woman alone is a sacrifice. Women together thrive. You can survive or you can thrive. And the men in our lives are important to make sure that happens as well. I thank you for inviting me. I'm sorry to go on so long. It's a pleasure always to be with this group.
Wow, Anita, thank you so much. Some really informative and provocative points that you made. I forgot to mention when I introduced Anita, one of the most important things about her, and it's unforgivable for me to forget this, is that she's a lawyer. So
actually, I'm not a lawyer. I have a JD degree, but I never passed the bar, and so I can't call myself a lawyer because I can't practice law.
Close enough for me. But since you did go to law school, I would point out your question that you posed about, can you fraudulently commit a rape? That's very interesting. I had a case some years ago where that kind of thing happened, and the DA would not prosecute it because he decided it was consensual. But I brought a civil suit for battery, assault and battery, and that resulted in some justice. So it may not be a rape under the criminal law, but it might be it could be a criminal battery or a civil battery. I know this is a little legalistic, but I just wanted to recite that. I'd like to know if anybody has any questions or comments for Anita before I turn her loose here. If you do, hit the raise hand button down there, and I'll try to notice it. Anybody got a raised hand? I don't see any. You can unmute yourself at that. LEK. I see LEK's got a raised hand. Yes.
Yeah, we have some additional good news that I'm sure Anita's aware of, but heard it the other night. Representative Pelosi is going to reintroduce the ERA.
Good.
And the consensus is that this time we're finally going to get it. So just thought to bring that up because it's pretty darn good special news.
It's about time.
No kidding.
Most people do not realize that there's only one place in the entire Constitution where women are specifically mentioned, and that is in the amendment that gave them the right to vote.
Yes, exactly. So anyway, it's coming back. We're going to get it this time.
Yes. Gia, did I see a raised hand?
No, but I'm all for the ERA.
Oh, all right. I thought I saw. Aaron, I know I'm told you had a raised hand.
Yes, I just wanted to, thank Anita and, just kind of mention that the point that you brought up about, the issue of violence against women being such a specific issue that women relate to, I had my own experience over the weekend. Last weekend, a few girlfriends and I celebrated, that we're all vaccinated, and I finally had a few days off to get out of town together. And one of our girlfriends got separated from us, and a man, thought it was his place to reach right up her dress and grab her when she was in the stairwell alone. And it was something that was really, really scary. And it's just a reminder of how, this is a grown woman, and we were nervous about getting separated, and it's the thing that is constantly on our mind. So I thought that was such an important thing to bring up, for men, for the men in our lives to really realize how scary it is as a woman on a daily basis. So thank you so much for sharing with us today and being so candid about your own experiences. It's a very brave thing to do, and we appreciate you being here with us today.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you, Aaron. Gabriel? Do I see your hand?
Yes, sir. First of all, I just want to say thank you, Anita. As a man, as a Latino, a people of color, I had 2 incidents to protect women as someone who I am as a former boxer, but also a license on self-defense, which means I am trained to resist any sort of, that I feel in defense. But first of all, my experience that I helped 2 of my ex-coworkers was we were walking after work. There was a customer that was very a man that's very aggressive, very more it's just disgusting to describe. I'd rather not describe him, but it was just very nasty. And luckily these 2 ex co-workers of mine were this close to being victims of rape. Had I not been there, they would have been completely raped. And luckily, luckily I had to really pretty much detain him, but it was nasty. But that's one. Second was last night. One of the women that was very very defenseless, a very guy doesn't know when to stop. Okay, and it was to the point where I don't step in until I ask her, hey, is he bothering you? What is it? Pretty much like that. But luckily it didn't escalate to the point where I had to, make sure that it's not to protect. But again, it's men like us that we need to step it up, and not just because for political, but if you see something wrong, then say something. But also I would really hope there's laws that can protect us, men like myself, who are here to protect, because again, these days, since I'm a former combative, I have something to lose here in the state of California. So that's just my comment on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabriel. Anita, thank you again for the fabulous presentation. You are welcome here anytime to return, and you can expect some invitations probably from me as issues over my time in this office arise that I think you could probably share some of your wisdom and experience.
If I can just close on one note, there are so many issues that we all care about and that we see we can be involved in individually and as a club. And I think we should not discount our impact on our elected officials in trying to solve some of these international problems. As much as there are issues we need to deal with here, we have such blessed lives compared to the lives some women are living around the world.
Yeah. Another comment that occurred to me, I happen to have a case now that I'm handling that involves funding from the Violence Against Women's Act. My part of the case involves millions and millions of dollars coming out of Congress to fund training for police officers on how to deal with domestic violent incidents. And what I've observed, and I've had the case now for about 5 years, I'm pretty deep into it. And what I've observed is The concept is a really good one because domestic violence situation is not the same as a bank robbery, for example. There are different dynamics going on and a different relationship between the victim and the perp, to put it in common language. But that being said, you're still dealing with training a number of police officers who are about 80% perhaps men. And you're dealing with a lot of these guys, not all of them, but a lot of them really have the good old boy kind of attitude towards the relationship between men and women. And I think if it's possible to tinker with the legislation, I know that Biden claims he authored the first one, so he should have an investment in this. But to tinker with it a little bit, it would be a good idea, in addition to training cops how to approach the situation, is training the other side of how to perceive what's going on. Because a lot of the perception has a lot to do with how it's handled. So anyway, sorry, I digress. So thank you, thank you again. And you're welcome to stay, of course. You don't need to, but you're welcome to stay as long as you want to. And we have been joined by our President Emeritus, Dory Smith. And Dory asked to speak a few words about a matter on her mind. There you are, Dory?
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Hello, everybody. Dory Smith here, President Emeritus, and thanks for attending today and listening to my friend, Anita Rufus. Thank you, Anita. So some of you may remember that I started and led the chapter of Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America for a couple of years before I got on the DOD board. And then Jimmy Thomas led it, and it currently does not have a leader and in the Valley. So I am putting out the message to everybody there that me and a friend are trying to find a leader for Moms Demand Action for at least 1 year. And Moms does a lot of training. And the reason is gun violence is here to stay in America. That's clear. And we still have a lot of work to do. And I just want to mention about Moms Demand Action. What is it? For those who don't know, it was started by a woman out of Indianapolis, Shannon Watts, after she was horrified that our US Congress did nothing after the Sandy Hook massacre. And it was truly a massacre of 26 children and teachers in Sandy Hook by a young man who should have never had a gun, and he had a military weapon. I'm sure you guys know this. In the US, we have 30,000 plus deaths by gun every year. That's around 100 people in America die every day. And I'm not even talking about those who are also grievously wounded and end up probably disabled for the rest of their lives. So we have to acknowledge that 2/3 of that number are gun suicides, but still that is a horrible thing in the United States of America, that over 30,000 people die by gun every year. We are truly awash in guns. And we have mass shootings when no other rich, well-developed country has mass shootings like we do. And I'm going to name a few countries because I had a woman argue with me the other day at a golf course. Oh yes, other countries have mass shootings, not like America does. I just Googled the New York Times that in the last 5 years, we've had 29 mass shootings. Now, the FBI calls a mass shooting anything more than 4 people, 4 or more. So we don't hear about all of them, but 29 mass shootings in the last 5 years. Other countries that have great gun laws that do not have mass shootings: Canada, England,
Japan,
France, Italy, Germany, Australia, New Zealand, and the list goes on and on. So America is awash in mass shootings, awash in guns. The net per capita in America, we're the highest, we have the most number of guns per capita in the world. The second country with the largest number of guns per capita is Yemen. I get very angry when I run into people who say, oh, America is exceptional. Yeah, America's exceptional when it comes to gun deaths, guns, and gun murders. We're unexceptional, and we should be ashamed that we have not done something to stop our mass shootings. Australia did it in the 1990s. New Zealand did it in a few years ago when they had a mass shooting. So anyway, I'm sorry I get on my soapbox, but Moms Demand Action is now larger than the NRA. It has more members than the NRA, and it has worked hard the moms volunteers have worked hard to get better gun safety laws passed in across the country, and they work by state because we've seen that it's been impossible to do it in Congress. So, and for example, Moms Demand Action and in a coalition with Brady got some gun safety laws passed right here in California. There are other good groups that have been fighting for gun safety. The Brady group has been out there ever since James Brady was shot, 30 or more years ago, when he was out with Ronald Reagan, and he was disabled for the rest of his life. So, and there's also the Coalition Against Gun Violence. That's another good group. So I'm asking you to please contact me if you know someone who might be interested in leading the Moms Demand Action chapter here in the Valley. You can do as much as you're able to do. It would be nice to have one event a month to help educate people and bring awareness to the issue. And I am available to be an advisor. I need some time off. I just led DOD for 2 years. Otherwise, I would go back to leading Moms Demand Action. That's how much I believe in it. And I want to point out and touch on Anita's discussion about violence against women. Most of the victims in America are women, okay? While children and men do die by guns, and probably most of the suicides by guns are men, and many veterans kill themselves with guns. It is an issue for women too. Gun violence is a huge issue for women too. And so all I want to say is let me know if you know someone who is willing to learn about Moms Demand Action and what it wants to achieve and lead it in the Valley. And I would be glad to be an advisor. And also, if you can't do that, but you'd like to donate, please donate to Moms through Everytown. It's everytown.org, or donate to the Brady Group, or donate to Coalition Against Gun Violence. They need our help because it's clear we've got to put pressure on Congress to try to get the gun safety bills passed in the Senate that the House has passed. And I'm glad to take questions, and I'm ready to be quiet now. Thank you for letting me talk.
Thank you, Dory. We are just a few minutes past 1 hour. That certainly concludes the official part of the meeting, and I will conclude it. But anybody who'd like to stick around in the Zoom meeting, I'm going to hang around for a while. If there's any issues that anybody would like to bring up and discuss, I personally enjoy these interchanges very much. If there's any critical club business, I'm going to be here too. But I want to thank all of you for being here, attending the meeting, and participating. And I look forward to working with all of you to achieve some of the goals that we've discussed here today. So thank you very much.
Stephen, congratulations on your first meeting.
Oh,
Well done.
oh, thank you.
Yes, very well.
Congratulations.
You done good.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to leave the meeting open, but everybody can go ahead and leave if they want. Just speak up if you want to talk about anything.
Stephen,
Yes.
I would like to thank you for the very kind words that you made at the Palm Springs City Council earlier this week for Well in the Desert. I was totally shocked when I heard you, and thank you so much.
Why were you shocked? That's the right thing to do.
No, I mean, I didn't know that you were going to be there. Well, I mean, tune in to say anything. So that was just shocking to me.
I did not stick around for the vote. What was did they take a vote?
Well, they've extended our deadline, but we're gonna have to move, and they're gonna help us to find a new site. They're to go back to the city council in 30 days from that meeting and report back to if we found a new location. The community, the people there don't want us there. But a lot of the problems they're having, though, are not our people.
Yeah, no, I was shocked when they were conducting the public comment. There were
Yes,
some things said against the well that I never thought I'd hear again, like these people are animal. I heard one woman say, I call these people animals and they're
Yes.
doing this and that. And there was really no focus at all to address where these problems come from and the root of the
Right.
problem. They're just interested in, I want my neighborhood to look like I
Right.
want it to look like, and if you don't agree with that, get out. I mean,
right. It's a
that's what I
NIMBY,
heard.
not in my backyard. It's a
Yeah.
NIMBY. So
Yeah.
we will be looking for a new location.
Yeah. I see Francis and Bob. I'm not sure whose hand is up, Francis's or Bob's, but
Okay. So in line with the Well in the Desert, yesterday was my first visit to the atrium. It started 2 or 3 weeks ago. The atrium is on 111 between Frank Sinatra and Country Club. And they have a new farmer's market, and somebody had a tent collecting for things in Well in the Desert. So that's good to know if you have anything to
Okay.
drop off.
good.
Friday
Oh,
morning.
great. And
That's
I'm
great.
always willing, if people have clothes or toiletries they want to donate, if they'll just call me, I'll drive over and pick them up and take them to the well. I don't have a problem with that. I do that quite often.
All right.
And you-
Well, thank you
chat?
for your kind words. I appreciate that. Anything else before I hit the red button here?
Thank you.
Okay. Goodbye, everybody. See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Meeting.